Today's video, I'm going to be going around telling you guys how to dodge every single first boss in every dungeon in Dungeon Quest. Without further ado, let us begin. First up, we got Desert Temple. Desert Temple basically has the following boss of the Sand Scorpion. For the Sand Scorpion's basic attack is about charging and it basically stings you. For it to dodge it, basically stay in shift lock and go around it, keep going around it over and over, and you should be able to stay out of its range to be able to dodge it. Next up, we have Desert Temple Legacy. For Desert Temple Legacy, it is the Sand Giant. The Sand Giant is the easiest boss of them all, only having 2 attacks. Fire lines and a single basic attack right in front of you. They're very easy to dodge, just keep your distance, walk around, and you should be fine, barely taking any damage because he doesn't do that much damage either. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one, which is Winter Outpost. Winter Outpost's first boss is called the Tundra Chimera. The Tundra Chimera is basically a boss that's similar to the Scorpion, but instead of crawling and charging towards you, it jumps around over and over and over. Sometimes it has a digging attack where you need to be careful and constantly keep moving to be able to dodge it. Also has minions where it does the similar attack to it, but in a way smaller range. Let's go ahead and move on to the next boss, which is Pirate Island. Our first boss in Pirate Island is Captain Blackbeard. Captain Blackbeard is extremely easy to dodge. It only has 2 attacks. First one is a rifle attack. Basically a rifle towards a random player, but since I'm the only player there, it's attacking me. And another cannonball attack. For the rifle, just keep walking sideways in shift lock. Use shift lock, it is important. And for the cannonballs, you can't predict where they fall, but make sure to be going in the direction that they're not being shot at. And you should be fine to go and take little to no damage in Captain Blackbeard. With that, that's how you dodge Pirate Island. Let's go ahead and do King's Castle. King's Castle, the first boss is the Beastmaster. The Beastmaster is very easy. It has a pattern of 3 attacks. As soon as it appears, it does the first attack where there are squares between the middle of lava squares and there are lava lines on the side. Just stay in one of those squares while he does the attack, and when he's going to his second attack, he does the same thing but the opposite. On those sidelines, there's going to be the squares and the middle is going to be full of lava. Then his third attack is the easiest one to dodge, which is a Beast Spin. It's basically a small red circle he attacks in. This is the best time to attack or get closer to him and be able to focus on him. So that definitely is when you should focus on the boss. Now let's go ahead and move on to the Underworld. The first boss of the Underworld is a Demonic Overgrowth. This first mini-boss basically does a similar attack to the King, if you've seen the King, where it does spike attacks towards you, and then it does spike attacks on rows, which there is some rows that you should be able to tell on which ones he will and will not do. Another thing he does is spawn minions. These minions, you should remove them quickly before they turn completely red. If they do, they will run faster than you, and you cannot outrun them. So make sure to focus on that and be able to dodge the spike attacks and stay in a consistent safe area. Now for that, let's go ahead and go to Samurai Palace. First, Samurai Palace, the first boss is called the Sanada Yukimura. Sanada Yukimura is the first mini-boss of Samurai Palace. It is basically a more complicated version of the Archmage. If you need to practice this boss, go to the Archmage. Learn the Archmage and you should be able to do this boss a lot easier. But basically, these attacks are basically like, instead of straight lines as the Archmage, they should be more like sideways, diagonal, and many other ways, and it can become a little more confusing. Another passive skill he has every 11 seconds is that he spawns a small samurai guy. Now you need to be careful with this because these can stack up if you take too long, but they shouldn't take that long to eliminate, and once you eliminate those, you should be able to move on. Alright, that's for Samurai Palace. Let's go ahead and move on to the Canals. The first mini-boss of Canals is the Mage Overlord. The Mage Overlord has a lot of attacks. Now, these attacks are basically the following. The Mage Overlord basically first shoots a bunch of slow orbs. Just keep your distance and you're fine. But another thing are the magic lines. Now these you need to stay between the magic lines where there's not an attack, and you should be able to dodge them easily. And a magical summoning, which is the final attack. This magic summoning basically summons a ghost from purple and it will chase a random player. Now this ghost, if it reaches you, it will explode on a small radius and cause damage to any person that was hit in that radius. Now that's for the Canals. Let's go ahead and move on to Ghastly Harbor. For Ghastly Harbor, we have the Kraken. The Kraken is the first mini-boss and the first boss of the Ghastly Harbor map. This boss is pretty simple. There is a small corner area that you can be in the boss that you can dodge most attacks like. The example of the attacks you can dodge are the poison shark throws and, well, the poison burst. But the one attack you'll have to be careful for is the tentacle slam. This is unavoidable. Basically, you need to be careful where you are, but maybe staying in one of the corners is definitely the way to go. Now, once you beat the Kraken and we move on to the next dungeon, which is Steampunk Sewers, this is what you should do. For the next boss on Steampunk Sewers, this is what you have to do. It is the Cyclops Siege Bot, which is the first mini-boss on the dungeon. Now, this boss has 3 attacks. First, it's a green circle, which will summon green circles around and it will get bigger 2 more times. So, make sure to stay out of range of the green circles because they will become a lot bigger. This next will start immediately using a rapid spin blast all around the map. Now for this, you need to stay in those little dodge areas because there'll be a little blind points. It'll be random every time, so you need to be careful in those. And on the third attack, it's the target blast. Basically, it'll start firing green circles at random players, or if you're the only player here, it will fire at you. So you need to be very careful and maybe use a speed spell to be able to dodge these since you start getting speed spells on these dungeons. Next up, we have the boss raids, which is we're going to do the Fusion Goliath. Now the Fusion Goliath is basically the first boss raid battle that you have. Now for this one, you need to do the following. For this one, there's a bunch of different attacks from these, but you need to have the right amount of health and basically keep your distance on it. Sure, its attacks may seem a little bit overwhelming at first, but you need to make sure to dodge where it is and where it's aiming at, and then you should be able to get more hang of it as you go. What you have to do for Orbital Outpost is for the Destroyer, which is the first mini-boss of Orbital Outpost. The Destroyer has a series of 3 attacks, color-coded by the way. The first one is a yellow, basically machete attack, where he attacks basically in a area, basically attacking at you. Keep some distance, and well, you should be fine, or go in its little blind spots, which it has that. The only difference is basically on its orange attack, it's basically the same thing, but the difference is if you get hit, you'll have a little area that will make you take additional damage and anyone near you. Now you need to be more careful on that. And the third and final attack that really matters is basically the missile launcher. Just keep distance, keep moving, and you should be fine from those missiles. They'll target random players. If you're the only one, it'll target you only. That is for Orbital Outpost. Now, for Volcanic Chambers. What you need to do for Volcanic Chambers is the following. The first mini-boss of Volcanic Chambers is the Ancient Lava Mage. The Ancient Lava Mage basically starts with some homing orbs. The homing orbs basically follow you, and will try to hit you, and if they reach you, they will attack you. And another attack is basically just shooting a straight line at you, or doing a lava burst, and another thing. One of the important things is removing those searing orbs around it. Those searing orbs, if they can get out of hand if they spawn too much, so make sure to get rid of them while you fight the boss. Now let's go ahead and move on to Aquatic Temple. Now these bosses are starting to get a little more difficult. Now for Aquatic Temple, we have the Temple Core Generator. Now the Temple Core Generator has a series of multiple attacks. Its first attacks is basically some water lines where it just shows on squares where it is, and some water lines to attack it. And then there's water squares progressively coming at you, so you need to be careful, and it happens around every 6 seconds and repeats over and over and over, where you need to learn that pattern and pass it while dodging the water lines. After a while, it's going to start shooting water orbs. These water orbs are a lot more dangerous, and they basically go around, and they can be a little bit difficult, but once you master the water lines, water orbs, it shouldn't be a problem at all. Now, next up for that one, we have the Enchanted Forest. The Enchanted Forest has the Crystal Golem, which is the first mini-boss. The Crystal Golem has the first boss is an attack that can hit multiple players in the entire range, which is the following attack. The attack that it does is basically Dome Blast. Now, this Dome Blast creates two crystals or orbs that go on and fall on one of these players, which need to reach in a safe zone, and if they don't, then the entire team will be hit. Now, if this only you, this will affect you and only you. And the other attacks can be a little bit difficult. Be careful, those crystals in the floor, they can stack up quickly. So make sure to stay out of the range, especially where there's multiple, because they can eliminate you really quickly. But once you got that handed down, you should go all the way to Northen Lands. Northen Lands' first mini-boss is the Midgardian Champion. Now the Midgardian Champion is the first boss of the Northen Lands. Now for this boss, this one's a little tricky. Basically, this boss does some basic lined attacks, basically dual beams, and then it starts summoning tornadoes. And after doing tornadoes for a bit, he's going to teleport to a random player, which the attack is called Champion Shout. Now, once it does that, it's basically going to shoot some shurikens and jump back to the area and repeat. These tornadoes are going to take a little bit to dodge, but you should have an inner spell right now, so make sure to use that to take to your advantage. Now, next up we have the first boss on Gilded Skies, which Gilded Skies is the Archpriest Crinier. I hope I said that right. Now for that, you need to do the following. Its first attack, it will summon a spiral beam which will say look away. Use your shift lock to look away. If you do not get this, you will likely be one shot and eliminated. Besides that, its other attacks will basically mean a purple orb which hits you, it freezes you, and most likely means you're certain doom, and other like lumiform orbs or circles and beams that will do a round, which you'll need to dodge while it does those blasts. This boss can get a bit tricky at first, but make sure to use your shift lock properly. If there is a boss that needs shift lock, it's this one more than any other. Last up, we got Yokai Peak. Now for Yokai Peaks, the first boss is Tatsu, the Lord of the Tides. Now Tatsu, the Lord of the Tides, is basically the first boss for Yokai Peak, which does the following moves. Now while it's in the air, it can use the Lightning Bolt attack, which basically zaps a bunch of areas, dealing a lot of damage, and if it hits someone, it can chain someone and basically do a lot more damage. Now for the other ones, it does like Head Slam. For this one, just basically stay to the side. And another one's like Tidal Breath, which will do a roar and spoon out a bunch of water. Just stay out of range and you should be fine. Now that's how you can help dodge every single boss and every single first boss in the game Dungeon Quest. I hope this helps you on starting new dungeons. If it did, subscribe, and you can maybe watch this video right here. I think you'll like it. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to subscribe. Waddle up, my friends.